What if I told you that every single one of us, no matter where we live, no matter the color of our skin or the language we speak, traces our story back to one place? A vast, sun-drenched continent, a cradle of life, Africa. But here's the deeper mystery. At some point, tens of thousands of years ago, small groups of prehistoric humans made the daring decision to leave that cradle, stepping into the unknown, crossing deserts, mountains, and seas. They didn't know it at the time, but they were about to change the destiny of the entire planet. Who were they? What drove them to leave the familiar rivers and grasslands of Africa for lands shrouded in ice and shadow? Was it hunger, curiosity, desperation, or something else entirely? Archaeology gives us fragments of their story. Ancient tools buried beneath the sands of Arabia, footprints fossilized in volcanic ash, bones scattered in caves stretching from Israel to Indonesia. Each piece is like a faint echo, a whisper of those first journeys. But together, they reveal one of the most dramatic and mysterious chapters in human evolution. Imagine it, small bands of hunter-gatherers, carrying little more than stone tools, fire, and stories, walking into landscapes that no human had ever seen before. The Ice Age world was harsh and unforgiving. Towering glaciers, deserts without end, predators larger and more powerful than anything we face today. And yet, somehow, our ancestors not only survived, they thrived. They met other humans out there too. Strange cousins who had left Africa long before them. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps even more lost civilizations of early humanity. Encounters that were not just clashes, but unions. Unions that still live on in our very DNA. This is not just the story of migration. It's the story of how the spark of Africa spread across the world, igniting culture, language, and identity. It's the story of the first great explorers, long before ships or compasses, who carried the future of humanity in their footsteps. And yet, so many mysteries remain. Why did they leave when they did? How many waves of humans spilled out of Africa, and how many perished, forgotten by time? What secrets lie buried in deserts, caves, and under seas that were once dry land? Tonight, we will follow the trail of those ancient wanderers, from the Rift Valley to the frozen steppes of Eurasia, from archaeological digs in the Middle East to genetic codes hidden inside our cells. Step by step, we will uncover how the first humans who left Africa shaped the world we live in today, and how their decisions echo through us, their descendants. Because to understand where we are going, we must first understand where we came from. And that story begins with a journey out of Africa. To trace the journey of the first humans out of Africa, we must begin with the landscape of prehistory, a world far older, stranger, and more dangerous than ours. The scientific consensus today is that modern humans, Homo sapiens, first appeared in Africa around 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. Fossil discoveries from places like Omo Kibish in Ethiopia, Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, and Herto in the Great Rift Valley provide powerful evidence of our early beginnings. These ancient bones and skulls tell us that by this time our species already carried the hallmark features of humanity: larger brains, lighter skeletons, and the ability to craft sophisticated stone tools. But Africa was not empty of other humans. Long before Homo sapiens emerged, earlier human species had already walked out of Africa. Homo erectus, one of our most successful ancestors, left Africa nearly 2 million years ago. Fossil sites in Java, China, and Georgia reveal their astonishing range. Later, their descendants evolved into regional species, like the Neanderthals of Europe and the Denisovans of Asia. In other words, by the time our own species was ready to step into the wider world, it was already inhabited. We were latecomers to a human stage crowded with cousins.
So why did our ancestors leave? Archaeology points to shifting climates as one of the great engines of migration. The Ice Age was not just a single frozen block of time, it was a cycle of expansions and contractions. Glaciers advanced, then retreated. Deserts expanded, then blossomed into green corridors. Each climatic shift opened new opportunities or forced desperate choices. The Arabian Peninsula, for instance, is a dry desert today, but tens of thousands of years ago, during wetter periods, it was covered in rivers, lakes, and grasslands. Recent excavations at sites like Jebel Faya in the United Arab Emirates and Al Wusta in Saudi Arabia reveal stone tools and fossilized human bones that suggest humans passed through Arabia in multiple waves. Some scientists argue that humans may have left Africa as early as 120,000 years ago, following green corridors across the Sinai and into the Arabian heartlands. Genetics tells another side of the story. By comparing the DNA of people across the world, scientists have traced all non-African populations back to a single out-of-Africa migration around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago. This doesn't mean earlier groups didn't leave. It means most of them failed to leave a genetic legacy. They vanished, swallowed by time, extinction, or absorption into other populations. Only one wave, our wave, succeeded in reshaping the planet. The routes of that exodus are still debated. One path would have taken early humans north, through the Nile Valley into the Levant, where caves like Skul and Kafsa in Israel preserve some of the earliest evidence of modern humans outside Africa, dating to nearly 100,000 years ago. Another route, the so-called southern dispersal, may have carried groups across the Bab el-Mandeb Strait at the mouth of the Red Sea into Yemen and beyond, hugging the coasts of Arabia, India, and eventually Southeast Asia. From there, the spread was astonishingly swift. Within just a few thousand years, humans reached Australia, an epic journey that required sea crossings and navigation long before the age of sails. Later, humans braved the frigid north, entering Siberia and eventually crossing into the Americas. Archaeological discoveries illuminate these steps. In Europe, sites like a waste cave in Romania and Kostenki in Russia show some of the earliest modern humans living alongside Neanderthals. In Asia, Denisova cave in Siberia yielded not only bones, but also DNA of a mysterious people who once interbred with us. In Australia, the rock art of Kakadu and the ancient site of Majed Bebe, dated to at least 65,000 years ago, prove how far humans had traveled in such a short time. Each fossil, each site, each genome is a clue. Together, they paint a picture of a species that was restless, adaptable, and relentless. Prehistoric humans were not just wanderers. They were survivors of constant trial. The Ice Age threw glaciers and deserts in their path. Predators stalked them. Rival humans confronted them. And yet, they pressed on. But here lies one of the greatest mysteries of archaeology. Why did our ancestors succeed when so many others did not? The Neanderthals had bigger brains. Homo erectus had already mastered long-distance travel. Even the Denisovans left traces across Asia. And yet, only Homo sapiens carried their story to every corner of the earth. Some argue it was our ability to adapt, to eat diverse foods, to invent new tools, to endure harsh climates. Others suggest it was language, the capacity to communicate across generations, to share complex ideas, to pass down survival strategies. Still others point to culture, art, rituals, and symbols that bound groups together with shared identity and purpose. Whatever the reason, the result is undeniable. From the moment those first small bands of prehistoric humans stepped out of Africa, the fate of the world began to shift. Entire ecosystems would soon change under their touch. Other human species would vanish, and a single species, our species, would become the architects of history. The story of the first humans who left Africa is not just about archaeology. It is about the birth of a global destiny. It is the turning point that transformed us from a local species to a planetary force. And yet, the journey was only beginning. To truly understand what those first migrations meant, we must step into the lives of the people themselves, see through their eyes, walk in their footprints, and feel the peril and wonder of the Ice Age world they entered.
Picture the scene. A group of perhaps 20 or 30 prehistoric humans stand at the edge of a great expanse. Behind them lies Africa, its acacia-dotted savannas, its roaring rivers, its landscapes they had known for countless generations. Ahead, the horizon is unfamiliar, a shimmering desert, a rising sea, or perhaps the green hills of the Levant. Their world was not comfortable. The Ice Age gripped the planet in cycles, shifting climates like a pendulum. Sometimes Africa bloomed with life. Other times, drought turned grasslands into barren dust. For these small groups of Homo sapiens, survival meant following the rains, the herds, the promise of water. But at some point, their search carried them beyond the boundaries of home. Imagine their daily reality. They carried sharpened stone blades, carefully napped from flint or obsidian, spears hardened by fire, bundles of food wrapped in animal skins. Fire itself, embers kept alive through the night, was their most precious possession, a thread of survival passed from hand to hand. And around the fire at night, they shared stories, songs, and warnings of predators. The first steps beyond Africa were not dramatic mass migrations. They were small, fragile movements, a clan following antelope herds across the Sinai, another group pressed by drought, wading along the shallow coasts of the Red Sea until the continents almost touched. Crossing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a mere 20 miles of water at its narrowest, may have been terrifying, but not impossible. Perhaps they lashed logs together or floated on bundles of reeds. Perhaps they simply swam in desperation, chasing driftwood to the other side. And once they arrived, the world opened. Arabia in those wetter ages was not endless desert, but a land of rivers and lakes. Stone tools found at Jebel Faya and El Wusta suggest that humans camped there, hunted there, lived there. For the first time in history, humans gazed at the stars from a new continent. But survival was brutal. Each day was a gamble. The Ice Age world teemed with predators larger and fiercer than today. Imagine walking through a grassy plain in Arabia, hearing the low rumble of a cave lion, the largest of all cats, stalking the same gazelle your clan hoped to hunt. Or spotting the tracks of hyenas, powerful enough to crush bones, circling your camp. And yet, humans endured. They moved in small, tightly knit groups. Their greatest weapon was not muscle or claws, but cooperation. Working together, they could drive game into traps, share food across families, and defend against danger. As the millennia passed, some of these groups pushed further north into the Levant. There, caves like School and Kafsa preserve haunting traces, skeletons of modern humans buried with shells and ochre, suggesting rituals of death. These were not just wanderers. They were already beginning to express meaning, identity, perhaps even faith. And it is here that the story takes an extraordinary twist. For when our ancestors walked into the Middle East, they were not alone. In the forests and caves of Eurasia lived another human species, the Neanderthals, stockier, stronger, adapted to the cold. They had been there for hundreds of thousands of years, shaping their own tools, hunting mammoths and bison, painting caves, burying their dead. For a long time, archaeologists imagined a brutal clash between the two species, a war of survival that ended with the Neanderthals' extinction. But DNA tells a subtler story. When scientists sequenced the Neanderthal genome, they found something astonishing. Traces of Neanderthal DNA live inside every non-African human today. Encounters between the two weren't just violent, they were intimate. Love, union, or necessity led to children. And those children carried genes that still shape our immune systems, our skin, even the way we process altitude and sunlight. This was not the only meeting. Farther east, another shadowy human lineage awaited, the Denisovans. Known only from a few fragments of bone and teeth in a Siberian cave, their genetic legacy endures in modern populations of Asia and Oceania. If you are from Tibet, parts of Papua New Guinea, or Australia, you carry Denisovan blood. Their genes may have even helped ancient Tibetans survive at high altitudes where oxygen is thin. Think of what that means. The first humans who left Africa began not just a journey of survival, but a journey of identity. Their footsteps laid the foundation for everything to come. The rise of civilizations, the shaping of languages, the birth of cultures. And their story is still written in us, in our bones, in our genes, in the way we look up at the night sky and wonder where we came from.
Science gives us outlines of the first great human migrations, but the details remain shrouded in mystery. For every fossil, every tool, every genetic clue, there are still gaps, vast empty spaces in our knowledge. And those gaps are where debate and controversy thrive. One of the great questions is, when exactly did humans leave Africa? Some archaeologists argue for an early exodus around 120,000 years ago, supported by fossils found in Israel's Skul and Kofseg caves, where modern humans lived long before the official migration around 60,000 years ago. But if this is true, why did their line vanish? Why is there no genetic trace of these early pioneers in today's populations? Were they absorbed into Neanderthal groups, outcompeted by later humans, or simply extinguished by climate shifts? Others hold firmly to the 60,000-year date, pointing to genetic evidence that all living non-Africans descend from a single migration. This suggests that earlier journeys were dead ends, human experiments that failed, erased by time. Yet archaeology continues to uncover tantalizing hints of earlier dispersals, tools in Arabia, footprints in Greece, skull fragments in China that look eerily modern. Could it be that human migration happened in waves, some successful, some doomed? Another debate centers on routes. Did the first successful wave take the northern corridor through Egypt and the Levant, encountering Neanderthals head-on? Or did they slip through the southern route across the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into Arabia, hugging the coasts all the way to India and beyond? The archaeological evidence is scattered, and both possibilities remain open. Perhaps the truth is not one path, but many, with groups branching like rivers, some drying out, others merging, a web of humanity spreading in all directions. Then comes the question of encounters with other humans. The traditional narrative paints Neanderthals as brutish and doomed, overwhelmed by the superior intelligence of modern humans. But this picture is changing. Evidence from cave art in Spain suggests Neanderthals may have created symbolic art even before modern humans arrived. They made jewelry from eagle talons. They buried their dead with care. They were not mindless cavemen. They were human in ways that unsettle our old stereotypes. So why did they disappear? Some scientists argue climate change and competition drove them to extinction. Others believe their small population size made them vulnerable to disease and genetic collapse. Still others suggest absorption. Rather than a simple extinction, Neanderthals live on inside us, their identities dissolved into our bloodlines. In this view, they never truly vanished. They became us. The Denisovans raise even stranger questions. Known from only a handful of fossils in a single Siberian cave, their genetic legacy is surprisingly widespread. How far did they roam? Did they have cultures, art, or beliefs of their own? Why do we know so little about them when their genes still help modern people survive in high altitudes and tropical jungles? Some researchers whisper of other unknown human species, ghosts in our DNA, fragments of genetic code that don't match Neanderthals or Denisovans, but hint at lost relatives we have yet to uncover.
And then there's the question of how humans spread so far, so fast. Within a mere 10,000 to 15,000 years, humans had moved from Africa to Australia, a staggering pace when you imagine the difficulties. Did they hug coastlines, living on shellfish and seaweed, which made travel faster and more reliable? Did they have rudimentary rafts or boats, hints of a maritime tradition long before recorded history? Some scholars even speculate that this coastal dispersal was humanity's first great seafaring achievement, a forgotten chapter of exploration thousands of years before the Phoenicians or Polynesians. Everywhere humans went, they transformed ecosystems. In Australia, within a few thousand years of arrival, the giant wombat, the thunderbird, and the marsupial lion were gone. In the Americas, the mammoths, mastodons, and saber-toothed cats soon vanished. Was this because humans hunted them too effectively? Or was it because of sudden climate changes at the end of the Ice Age? Or both? The debate continues, but one truth is clear. The presence of humans always altered the balance of life. This raises another haunting question. Were humans always destined to dominate the Earth? Or were we simply lucky? Lucky that the climate shifted in ways that favored us? Lucky that our small bands survived drought and predators? Lucky that Neanderthals and Denisovans dwindled while our groups expanded? Some scientists argue that chance, not inevitability, determined our survival. If one drought had lasted longer, if one volcanic eruption had been harsher, perhaps Homo sapiens would be just another fossil species, remembered only in fragments. Finally, there is the mystery of human culture itself. At what point did humans begin to think symbolically, to create art, to imagine the unseen? The earliest cave paintings, figurines, and carvings appear after humans had already spread across continents. But did those ideas emerge suddenly, or were they quietly alive long before, hidden in the songs and stories whispered around campfires in Africa, Arabia, and beyond? Some archaeologists believe that symbolic thought, the ability to imagine things that do not exist, was the secret weapon of Homo sapiens. Unlike Neanderthals, who may have lived in smaller, isolated groups, Homo sapiens could weave vast networks of cooperation through shared myths and symbols. A bead carved from bone was not just decoration, it was a sign of belonging. Ochre smeared on a burial was not just color, it was belief. These ideas created bonds beyond family, linking groups into alliances that could endure famine, travel, and conflict. In this way, culture itself became an evolutionary advantage. And yet, despite all these theories, the truth remains elusive. Each new discovery rewrites the story. A skull in Greece pushes back the date of migration. Tools in India challenge timelines. DNA extracted from sediments reveals hidden populations. What we know today may be overturned tomorrow. Perhaps that is what makes the story of the first humans so captivating. It is not a finished book. It is a puzzle still being solved, a mystery that deepens with every answer. We know this much. The humans who left Africa stepped into a world already occupied, already harsh, already uncertain. And yet, they did not stop. They pressed forward, reshaping the earth and weaving all of us into their journey. Their footsteps are still with us, in our bones, in our DNA, in the myths that echo across cultures. And their unanswered questions still challenge us. Who were we at the dawn of humanity, and what does that mean for who we are today?
When we look back at those first migrations, it's easy to see them only as distant history, figures fading in the mist of time, carrying stone tools and fire across ancient landscapes. But the truth is, their journey is still our journey. The choices they made, the risks they took, the resilience they showed, these things live on in us. Think about what it meant to leave Africa, to walk away from the known, from rivers and valleys that had nourished countless generations, into a world of deserts, storms, and ice. That leap into the unknown was not just a physical migration,
It was an act of imagination. To leave home, you must first believe that life can exist beyond the horizon. You must believe there is something worth finding on the other side. In this way, the story of prehistoric humans is a story of courage. It reminds us that we are not descendants of the timid. We come from people who dared to step into uncertainty, who faced scarcity, predators, and strange lands, and still pressed forward. When we struggle with our own uncertainties today, economic instability, climate change, personal challenges, this history whispers to us, you are built to survive this. You are built to adapt. There is also a lesson about diversity. The humans that left Africa did not remain unchanged. They encountered Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps other lost cousins. They mixed, exchanged genes, and carried fragments of each other into the future. Today, every human alive carries a mosaic of ancestry. We are all, in a literal sense, children of encounters. This challenges modern divisions of race and identity. If our ancestors could intermix and survive together in an unforgiving Ice Age world, what does that say about the walls we build between ourselves now? Consider, too, the role of cooperation. A lone human in the Ice Age had no chance against a cave lion, a raging river, or a freezing winter. Only together could they hunt, build shelters, and protect children. Those who shared knowledge, where water could be found, which plants could heal, ensured survival. Our species' success was not based on strength alone, but on the power of community. That lesson is as urgent today as it was then. In a world facing global crises, from pandemics to climate disasters, our survival still depends on working together. The migrations also show us the cost of our presence. Wherever humans went, extinctions followed. The giant wombats of Australia, the towering mammoths of the Americas, the saber-toothed cats, all gone soon after our arrival. Was it hunting? Was it fire? Was it competition? Whatever the cause, the pattern is clear. Humans have always reshaped the world. This is not just history, it is a warning. We carry the power to destroy ecosystems, but we also carry the power to preserve them. Knowing that our impact is ancient reminds us that the responsibility is ours too. There is another, more personal reflection, the meaning of belonging. For prehistoric humans, home was never fixed. It shifted with the seasons, the herds, the rains. They adapted to deserts, jungles, tundras, and coasts. Their identity was not tied to borders or nations, it was tied to survival, kinship, and shared stories. Today, in a world divided by boundaries, it's worth asking, are we too attached to the illusion of permanence? The truth of our species is movement, adaptation, and resilience. We are, at our core, wanderers. And yet wanderers with memory. Those early migrations seeded traditions that endure. The idea of telling stories around a fire, of teaching children lessons through myths, of marking the passage of the dead, all began in those small bands crossing strange lands. When we light candles, tell bedtime stories, or visit graves, we echo the same instincts of people who looked up at the Ice Age sky and wondered about their place in the universe. The migrations also hint at something profound, that exploration is in our DNA. Just as our ancestors once left Africa, then crossed oceans, then braved frozen Siberia, we now reach for the stars. Some scientists argued that the same curiosity and restlessness that drove humans out of Africa will one day carry us to Mars, to distant planets. The journey of humanity is unfinished. It stretches outward into the cosmos. The question is not whether we will go, but whether we will take with us the wisdom of our past, to respect the environments we enter, to cooperate, to adapt without destroying. So what does this mean for you, the viewer, sitting in the 21st century, watching the story of people who lived 70,000 years ago? It means that their struggles are not so different from yours. When you face uncertainty, remember, they walked into the unknown, and you carry their courage. When you feel divided from others, remember, your blood carries the legacy of unions across species and cultures. When you wonder about the future, remember, your ancestors were explorers, and their spirit lives in you. The first humans that left Africa were not just shaping their own survival, they were shaping the destiny of humanity itself. And now that destiny rests with us. We are the inheritors of their choices, their resilience, and their mistakes. What will we do with it? Will we continue to wander and destroy, or wander and protect? Will we repeat their patterns or rise beyond them? The past does not give us all the answers, but it gives us a mirror. When we look at the footsteps left in volcanic ash, the bones in caves, the DNA in ourselves, we are not just looking at them, we are looking at ourselves. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this: no matter how far we travel, no matter what civilizations we build, no matter how many mysteries we solve, we are still children of Africa. That is where our story began, and that story is still being written.
In the grand timeline of Earth's history, the moment when humans first walked out of Africa is a flicker of light. Small, brief, almost invisible against the vastness of time. And yet it is the flicker that changed everything. From those first fragile steps came a chain of journeys that reshaped the planet. They crossed deserts and rivers, braved glaciers and storms, and ventured into lands filled with strange creatures in unfamiliar skies. They encountered Neanderthals and Denisovans, mixing with them, outlasting them, and carrying fragments of their legacy into the future. They left behind tools, bones, art, and most importantly, descendants, you and I. Every human alive today, whether in New York or Nairobi, Beijing or Buenos Aires, carries the echo of that migration. We are walking testaments to their resilience. Our languages, our cultures, our technologies, all are the flowering of seeds planted when small groups of prehistoric humans decided to risk everything and step into the unknown. And yet so much remains unsolved. How many waves of migration truly took place? How many cousins did we meet and lose along the way? Were there other human species long forgotten whose bloodlines still hum faintly in our DNA? Each discovery brings new questions, reminding us that the story of human evolution is far from finished. But one thing is certain: those first humans were not ordinary. They were dreamers. To leave Africa was to imagine something beyond the horizon, to trust that survival could be found in the unseen. That same spark lives in us today, in our science, our art, our restless desire to explore. It drove us to cross oceans, to map the skies, and now, perhaps, to one day leave this planet for others. So what lesson do we take from them? Perhaps it is this: humanity is at its best when not it clings to safety, but when it dares. Not when it isolates, but when it connects. Not when it destroys, but when it adopts, learns, and shares. We are children of survivors, wanderers, and visionaries. Their blood runs in our veins. Their choices live in our bones, and their footsteps still echo beneath our own. But the question remains: do we truly understand them? Do we really know everything about our ancestors, or are we only scratching the surface of a far greater story? That is the mystery we leave you with, because the story of the first humans out of Africa is not just about the past, it is about who we are today and who we will become tomorrow.
If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's earliest history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And join us next time as we uncover more secrets of prehistory, evolution, and the hidden mysteries of our shared past. The journey continues.